Welcome to the What is Stoicism podcast.
It's a source of some solace that no matter what's happening in our lives, there's almost always something to be grateful for. Even in the midst of frustration, disappointment, or serious difficulty, if we're willing to look carefully enough, we can usually find a perspective that brings us back to thankfulness. This doesn't require a heroic effort. Often it requires only a brief redirection of attention. Our current circumstances, however unpleasant, don't always need to trigger a slide into despair. At the very least, in the vast majority of situations, we can recognize that what we're facing could be much worse. This may sound simple, but it's a powerful Stoic exercise. One way to make gratitude more available is to think, not obsessively, not morbidly, but deliberately, of the bad things that have not happened to us. This is especially useful when we find ourselves dissatisfied with our present situation. For example, imagine being late for an appointment and sitting in static rush hour traffic. It's easy to curse the delay, feel irritated by other drivers, and let the mind spiral into resentment. But with a slight shift of perspective, we might remember that our life isn't in imminent danger. We're not trapped in a war zone. We haven't just experienced a catastrophe. We're merely late. We might take the exercise further and bring to mind all the people who are in far worse predicaments through no fault of their own. If we're suddenly to switch places with them, we would be desperate to return to the exact frustration we're now complaining about. That thought can be enough to soften the anger. It can turn complaint into perspective. The Stoic author William B. Irvine gives a vivid example of how far this kind of reflection can go. Consider, he says, someone who has been reduced to owning nothing but a loincloth. Even then, his circumstances could be worse. He could lose the loincloth. And if he loses that, he can still be grateful for his health. If his health deteriorates, he can still be thankful that he's alive. The point isn't to deny hardship or pretend that pain isn't painful. The point is to train the mind to see that gratitude is often still available, even when comfort isn't. And this practice of imagining loss can be applied not only to difficult circumstances, but also to the ordinary moments we fail to appreciate. Have you ever imagined what things would be like if you had already died? Granted, it's not a comfortable thought, but there are worthwhile benefits to the practice. Suppose you're visiting friends or family, or babysitting your child or a young relative, or sitting at home with your pet. You're physically present but distracted. Your mind's on a problem at work. Your attention is buried in your phone. You're in the room, but not really there. Then, for a moment, you notice what's happening. There's no joy in the scene, no real attention, no proper engagement with the people or beings around you. You're giving less of yourself to the moment than it deserves. At that point, you might ask, if my death had already occurred, and I was somehow offered a chance to return to this exact scene, how much would I savor it? How deeply would I listen to my family? How warmly would I speak to my friends? How much joy would I take in the innocence of a child? How much attention would I give to the pet who wants so little from me and yet values my presence so much? And by comparison, how little importance would I give to the work that will still be there when it's time to work? How little attention would I give to the fleeting distractions of the smartphone? How little time would I waste? This way of thinking can completely transform an interaction. One moment you're vaguely aware of the people around you, the next you're fully engaged with them. One moment you're bored, distracted, or stressed, the next you're grateful to be walking your dog. One moment you're disconnected from life, the next you return to it. Marcus Aurelius described this kind of reawakening as a bonus life. Quote, imagine that you've actually been dead and that you haven't lived your life up to the present moment. and then treat what remains of your life as a bonus, and live in accord with nature." End quote. This is one of the most moving exercises in Stoic practice. It asks us to imagine that everything has already been taken from us, and then to see the present moment as something given back. The effect is immediate. What seemed ordinary becomes precious. What seemed irritating becomes bearable. What seemed dull becomes alive again. This connects closely with the earlier exercise of imagining worse circumstances. Both practices remind us that our present life isn't something to take for granted. The traffic jam, the family visit, the child's question, the dog needing a walk, the quiet room, the chance to breathe, speak, listen, and begin again. All of these are easier to appreciate when we imagine their absence. The Stoics weren't trying to make us gloomy by encouraging thoughts of loss or death. They were trying to make us awake. They understood that human beings often become blind to what is near. We overlook what we still have because we are preoccupied with what we lack. We neglect the living moment because we're mentally trapped in future worries or trivial distractions. But when we imagine losing what's present, we learn to receive it differently. So if gratitude seems difficult today, begin gently. Think of what has not gone wrong. Think of what you have not lost. Think of the burdens you have been spared. Then look at what's directly in front of you and imagine, just for a moment, that you had lost all of it and had somehow been given one more chance to return. That chance is now. This hour, this conversation, this breath, this person, this ordinary scene. Treat it as part of your bonus life. Imagine you had lost it all and then been brought back. Then live accordingly.